I grew up in Olympia. It's the capital of Washington State, but if you ask anyone who's not from around there, you typically just tell them it's just south of the city that the state is much more known for, Seattle. Regardless of the details, it's abundantly clear that the Pacific Northwest is well established for a few things. Damp streets that never dry from soft, perpetually falling rain, a Starbucks on every corner, artistic and hopeful insomniacs. You don't need to have lived in Washington to understand the state of mind and place that Coffee Talk is trying to reproduce, though. The quiet sound of rain against glass, the light clinking of china, and the smell of clean and neat warming espresso. As a person who spent years loving, making, and selling coffee, they're all things that put me at ease and make me nostalgic. They make me think of my home in and near Seattle. But as well as Coffee Talk conjures up these emotions, it's a game that does more than create memories of home. It's not just a game about selling drinks to people in an area known for its caffeinated beverages. Coffee Talk carries a deeper human understanding than what it seems on its surface, and an even greater satisfaction than simply serving a customer the correct drink. Through the sum of its parts, Coffee Talk is a reminder of the momentary comfort of simple interactions with kind and understanding people, and the forgotten feeling that comes from sitting next to them and sharing a story, when the world doesn't currently allow for it. Coffee Talk is set in an alternate version of Seattle in the year 2020. The world is pretty similar to the one that we know and live in, but this version is also inhabited by fantastical and mythical creatures. These differences serve more as a reminder of how things are the same, though, with reminiscent themes of racial relations and conflict, only with the added spin that it's not simply a problem faced by humans. Orcs protest for equality in the workplace. Mermaids face difficulty with border patrols preventing their immigration, and certain races simply can't be together because they pray to different gods and have different upbringings. Most of these aren't at the forefront of the game. However, their inclusion, when presented through the cast interactions, helps cement what the game is truly about. The stories of the motley crew of characters that come into the game's eponymously named coffee shop, Coffee Talk, and the feeling that the difficulties that they face are truthful. Whenever the moon comes out, you'll be making drinks while you listen to the life stories of interesting and colorful regulars as they develop relationships with each other, and with you. All of them have small, interweaving arcs that will leave you with a smile and just a little bit of introspection. Lua is a succubus, but is having difficulties coming to terms with making her relationship with her elven boyfriend Bailey's work because of the racist views both of their families share about the other. Neil is an interstellar being and is trying their best to understand the culture and mannerisms of Earth in order to fit in and find a romantic partner. Freya is a human writer who loves to converse with and watch all who come through as she tries to make progress on her novel, and will write daily short stories for the paper inspired by her interactions with the cafe patrons that you can read at your leisure. All of these characters and more will come to the shop to release their burdens, and will typically end the night with a little bit more insight than they started through their interactions. Your job as the barista is simply to make them their drinks, and to chat. There's a simplicity to all of this that flows well. Being a visual novel, outside of the times when a character requests a drink, there isn't a lot of personal interaction. Still, there's a certain very real satisfaction that results from a character telling you a precise drink they're craving, and being able to appease them. Sometimes your guests will come in knowing exactly what they'd like, while other times, they just know how they'd like it to taste, and you'll need to experiment to figure out how to serve it best. You've got a variety of ingredients and bases to work with, so sometimes it requires some trial and error. It can be easy, albeit a little bit frustrating, getting certain drinks correct. All three ingredients need to be in the perfect arrangement to satisfy orders. They're oftentimes described beforehand, either by guests or in the mixing process, on a gauge of bitterness, sweetness, hot, and cold. Still, even if you have the correct ingredients but put them in at the wrong time, you'll end up with the incorrect drink. When you do get these correct, they're stored in your phone for future reference, which can help alleviate some of the memorization and guesswork. There's no scoring system here, or actual threat for getting someone's order wrong other than their slight disappointment that it didn't match their expectations, though. This lack of consequence could be seen as something that detracts from the game, but it actually helps with the flow and the feelings of general, good-natured company the game provides. The stories and the connections take center focus. Just like working at a quiet coffee shop and knowing your regulars, a mistake is fine as long as there's a conversation involved to keep each other company. The real draw of Coffee Talk is almost indescribable. As a former barista, it absolutely calls the positive feelings of serving someone a warm drink on a cold night and being a slice of where they're going. Outside of that personal sentiment, the game also feels especially effective because of the tumultuous year that many experienced in 2020. Coffee Talk isn't a soapbox for social issues, and isn't trying to be. It's a presentation of the comforts of sitting next to company, familiar and unfamiliar, to join each other in warm drinks and life stories. You may not be there to see the outcomes of all of these accounts, but that's the magic of a coffee shop. You'll see a glimpse of a person's story, only to imagine its conclusion, but remain a very small part of it at the same time. The end of these stories isn't the draw. Like working at a coffee shop, there isn't really a perceptible end, and life goes on. However, what Coffee Talk nails more than anything is that gratification one can get from the simple interactions of others, as well as being present in what feels like a now distant world that you could only be a part of yesterday. Today, you may not be able to physically sit down at a coffee shop, sip a warm beverage, and strike up a conversation with your neighbor, but with Coffee Talk's spellbinding lo-fi music, wonderful pixel art, and gratifying character stories, for a moment it feels like you can. Even in a fantasy version of 2020 Seattle, somehow, it feels just like coming home.